Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Calen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. Hi, Sam.
Good morning, Calen. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day again.
I know. It's gorgeous in Victoria, British Columbia.
Yeah, May is nice. The campfire ban is lifted temporarily.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so I can burn things on the weekend again.
Oh,
It's
fun.
my favorite thing to do.
I mean, that's probably not going to be lifted for very long, so enjoy it while you can.
I'm going to. I have work to do in my yard.
I love it.
I got burning things.
And the yard's going good? The garden season is upon us? Are you growing stuff?
My greenhouse is full of little seedlings that I'm growing. My house is starting to fill up a little bit with more seedlings that I can't fit in my greenhouse. And I'm just waiting to be able to start popping things into the ground.
Well, next spring, I'm going to be on you.
Yeah.
Not on you. I'll be with you.
Please.
Sorry. That sounded
Good thing our guest is
HR is here to keep you guys in line.
You know that top 10 list?
Yes.
That was one of the
That was
questions.
one of the
I was gonna
inappropriate
see if
behavior, which is probably a good segue into introducing our guest.
Before I answer your question.
Yeah, exactly. We've got Robynne Randall, HR manager at Big Wheel Burger.
Yes.
I know her well. She's a part of our senior leadership team and does an amazing job. So we're going to talk a little bit about human resources amongst other things.
Yeah, good morning,
well.
Robyn.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here.
Do you want to give a little bit of a background of where you came from and
Yeah, for sure.
what you're doing?
So, I mean, I've been with Big Wheel Burger. Actually, this last Saturday was my 3-year anniversary working for Big Wheel Burger.
I owe you $300.
You do.
Oh, yes.
Say, where's that cash?
I know. I got to get the cash.
Don't worry, I haven't forgotten.
No, yeah.
But I originally came from Saskatchewan. I lived in Victoria previously and met you, Calen, several years ago. And then it kind of just came full circle for me where I was able to have an opportunity to do HR for you. And yeah, it's kind of evolved into a really cool experience where I've been able to take some of my previous life experience, which I think I'll get an opportunity to talk about on this podcast, and use a lot of that personal experience as an HR manager, which I think has helped me be really effective in being able to manage people.
It's kind of that human approach and
Yeah,
drawing on your own experience.
Exactly, because people will often talk to me and be like, where did you go to school? And I say I went to the University of Life.
Right? Yeah, it's School of Hard Knocks.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, and I think that's a good point, too, because people always, well, I don't know that they worry about it as much anymore, like resume building. But, you know, looking at the real world experience is pretty relevant. So your work experience is part of it as well. But, you know, how you grew up, you know, how did you interact with everybody and, you know, how do you socialize and also dealing with that human part? Like, have you struggled? Have you battled with certain things and overcome them? You know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I always like to look at employee management is seeing, you know, the employee as more than just a number on a list of people who work for us, but actually seeing the human behind that and recognizing that people are bringing all different parts of themselves into the workplace.
Yeah.
And it's our responsibility as leaders and managers to show up for them and be emotionally aware and responsive, but also having structures in place to hold people accountable and give them understanding of what our expectation is for them in the workplace.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I think you kind of touched on it a little bit there is like everybody requires a different skill set to deal with, like either training, mentoring, coaching, and everybody brings their own unique personality and traits to the table. And as a good manager, which would be also coaching the managers to be good managers of people, is meeting people where they're at. And not necessarily doing one box fits all.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. And Sam and I were chatting earlier a little bit about employee management, and I was talking about my approach was we can have the same, you know, structures and policies and hold people consistent to that, but it's the way we respond to people and we show up to people that we have to adjust our approach. And that's what I always say to our managers is you may manage one person a certain way, and then you're going to have to adjust yourself based on who this person is in front of you. And you're going to be way more effective and probably see a lot more productivity coming out of that employee if you can meet them on that human level and not just kind of stick them in a box and say, I expect all of my employees to behave a certain way.
Yeah, and
That's
also
not
to
gonna
react
work.
to you on how you're course correcting the behavior too.
Yeah.
Like everyone's going to react differently. And some
Totally.
people will react positively, and some people will react a different way. But then how do you adjust that? So there's you've got your system. So what would you describe for a new business starting out? Like what kind of things would you recommend they have in place? And I would say, even though you're a small business, you should structure yourself with some of the tools of a bigger business, so that if you do grow, but also those policies, those manuals, those SOPs are pretty important documents. So
When, when I learned about employee contracts, that changed my life.
Yeah.
That made me feel more secure in my position, and it made me feel more secure about my employees' positions as well.
Yeah, totally. And that's exactly it, is like creating, a fail-safe system for yourself as an employer, really looking at what are my policies, what are my guidelines, do I have this structured in a way that my employee is going to understand what my expectation is of them? And do I have everything covered to make sure that I'm also protecting myself? Because the employees are the number one asset to a business owner. And we have a responsibility to them when we're saying, come work for us, to give them a really clear understanding of what their role is, what their job description is, what our policies are, to help them understand our expectation and to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for both parties, the owner and the employee.
I think it makes it easier to manage too, because then you've got a document that sort of sets out the expectations right from the get-go, gives you an opportunity to have a discussion, and make sure that the employee and yourself and the managers understand each other. And then I think from a management tool, you get to use this document that has already been discussed. You already had an agreement, and then you can just go back to it if one side is deviating from it. Like,
Yeah, totally.
you know.
That's often what I talk to the managers about, is like when you're having performance issues with your employees, the first thing that I recommend they do is pull out that job description and sit down with the employee and review it, because employees have a general understanding of their role, but sometimes if you don't break it down into point form, it's easy for people to forget. And it's a great tool to kind of get people back on track on understanding the expectations, and a great way for an employer or a manager to also make sure that they are being consistent in the way that they're holding people accountable.
Yeah, so the policies are one for everybody, but how you apply it and how you deal and navigate it is where the nuance comes in.
Yeah,
right.
totally.
That's sort of meeting people where they're at, and also I think it makes it easier to manage too.
It does make it so much
'cause
easier.
it removes
to
that
manage.
personal thing, right?
Yeah, because I often say to managers, sometimes, like if you create gray areas for people, in the moment you might say, oh, I'm doing this person a favor, but it can actually just lead to a lot of confusion for the employee and the employer. So it's not that we want to be rigid, it's just that we want to know, like, these are our policies and our procedures, these are our expectations, we make it really clear. But we are going to adjust, like we've been talking about, our approach to people based on who they are, but we're not going to change our policies and our procedures, because that's the way we do business.
Kind of like building the borders of a kid's sandbox really clearly. You can do anything you want in there, but once you start to encroach on the boundaries, you need to bring it back.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy.
It makes the kids in the sandbox feel more comfortable, and it makes the parents feel more comfortable knowing that they're okay in that space.
Well, and
Yeah,
everybody
for sure.
knows the rules. I think understanding the rules, like just like as you're raising kids, like I mean, I say this, but I don't have kids.
Raising
so
nieces
I'll just
from
stop. I'll just
afar.
stop right there.
You raise employees.
I didn't need to. I had 100 kids over the years, or more, I guess, 100
More,
kids at
I
a time.
think. Yes.
The kids are children.
Well, young
Kids.
adults, I
Kids.
guess, young
Yeah.
adults. you
We've
know,
got
that-
some kids working for us. We have employees as young as 14 working for
Yeah,
us.
it's crazy.
So that's also speaks to our responsibilities as an employer to make sure we are creating that safe environment where people really truly understand who we are and what we do and what they can expect when they show up to work. Because not only do we have kids working for us, but we have obligations to these kids' parents to make sure that we're keeping them safe and supported at work. So it is a big responsibility in a lot of
Gulp.
ways.
It's
No
a little
pressure.
scary. Yeah, no pressure. I'm like,
When you put it that way, you're like, oh, actually, I do have a lot of responsibility on myself. Yeah.
I'm going to play slight devil's advocate.
I love it.
Not that I'm taking this position, but I'm sure some people would think, why is it an employer's responsibility to take care of a 14-year-old who has permission from their parents to come work? Isn't that
Throw
job
them
for
to the
that-
wolves? Is that what you're saying?
Not throw them to the wolves, but if you're going to let your kids work at 14 to develop human skills out there in the in the world, I mean, is it really the employer's responsibility to change how they do things to let that happen? Or is it the parents' responsibility to not let them work when they're 14 because they're not mentally prepared to work?
I mean, it sounds like, simple when you say it, but when you break it down, it's really not. Because, I mean, as employers, we need employees, first of all. We also should give people the opportunity to learn. We're at Big Wheel Burger, we're an entry-level job. So we recognize that people are going to be coming to us at a young age to learn a set of skills. And those are minors. So we do absolutely have a responsibility to them to keep them safe, to have a level of accountability and transparency. And it's really cool also to be in a position where you're saying, like, I see you, and I also might have an opportunity to add to the life skills you're maybe already learning from your parents, at school, wherever it may be. I think we just create a better world overall when we approach things that way.
I agree with you.
No, you don't. You're the devil's advocate.
I'm just as devil.
Well, let
I'm
me
not
be
as
the other
advocate.
devil's advocate and
Yeah.
expand it further.
Yeah.
You also have a mix of people. So you've got adults, you got I guess kids, you've got young adults, you've got middle-aged adults, you've got a whole range.
Yeah.
So those people, you got a responsibility to make sure that they're all navigating well with each other. Because when you take a 40-year-old line cook and then pair them with a 16-year-old young lady, there's, how do you know how this behavior is going to go and what environment you're creating the environment for them, and is it going to be conducive to a safe space, right? Like,
Yeah.
and you talk in this day and age about this woke. It's about common sense, and it's about being good caretakers of your coworkers and making sure that that is a safe place, that you're not going to run into problems.
Right. And to play devil's advocate to my devil's advocate,
No, I'm going to go
also
devil's
say-
advocate.
I would also say that when you hire a 14-year-old, you don't know why they are coming to work. If
It's
they
true.
have
Yeah.
to help,
They could be supporting
they could
themselves
be
or their
supporting
family.
themselves or their family.
Yeah.
This is something they might have to do, not necessarily want to do
Yeah.
or have chosen to do. So yeah, I can see treating them well.
Yeah, exactly.
option.
And that speaks to you don't understand entirely what people are bringing to work. We say a lot of times, people should leave work at the door. Well, that's not a reality because we're human beings. And if someone is having, a bad day or they have issues at home, they're going to bring that to work. So it is our responsibility to show up for them and create, again, that safe environment for them to be in, because we don't know what they're dealing with at home. And the best thing we can do for people is at least give them a place to show up to work that's going to be consistent and safe and reliable for them.
Well, it further supports having the right structure, the right employee manuals, the right systems in place, the right oversight, the right accountability, the right forum to deal with issues that when they come up, so that structure is built. Because you wouldn't be surprised. You wouldn't be surprised at all that, you think everything's going smooth, and then behind the scenes there's something that's happening, and you may not be aware of it. It may come out in a way that you least expect it, and then you're like, whoa, I thought our culture was this, and we have all these systems, but all these anomalies come up where you're like, oh, I didn't expect that, or I didn't know that about that person that then did this, and all the history and their friends and all that dynamic that happens, and all of a sudden you've got a real problem in your hands where it could become a human rights issue, a discrimination issue, an abuse issue. So, the onus is on the employer to provide a safe workspace. And also, if you want a productive, happy staff, not getting ahead of this stuff, then chances are you're going to hit these roadblocks and these dips in the road and potholes way more often, and then not know how to deal with it.
Do you think that the hospitality industry offers more challenges in this regard than say, the tech industry or a production facility might?
I think it potentially could, and starting with the fact that the hospitality industry has one of the highest turnover rates in the work industry. So that means you often have a revolving door of new people, and you might have all the policies in place, and you might have great managers, but every time you add a new person, you're potentially introducing a new dynamic to the workplace, which is why, as a manager and a leader, you have to be really mindful of that all the time and be constantly checking in with people and making sure that people are being held accountable and our policies are being followed, because those are the ways to protect the business and the employee that's working for you.
And when you say checking in, do you mean like on a quarterly basis with every employee, or that sort of system where it's on a schedule?
Yeah,
and
I
you're-
mean, we kind of do it a bit of a different way. Like, my role as HR manager is essentially managing the managers to ensure that they are managing their employees effectively. So I spend my time, we've got 5 locations, going in between those locations on a weekly basis, checking in with the managers, looking into kind of what's been going on with their employees. If we notice a spike in a turnover rate, what's going on there? If performance reviews are up to date, how are we doing with documenting conversations, so that I can make sure that those things are staying consistent. And then the trickle down effect from the manager to the employee, you can see the results coming from that.
Right. Okay.
Well, and I think it's, you talk about those disciplinary things. I think people tend to avoid hard conversations. But if you treat it as a teaching moment or a coaching moment, and you, right from the get-go, you make everybody understand that this is something we're going to do on a regular basis. And this isn't necessarily a negative thing. It's a constructive thing for both parties. So if they have issues with the workplace, or if there's things going on, you give them a safe space to talk about it. And then you could also talk about the issues that you have maybe with their performance or what have you. So it doesn't become, something the manager's afraid to do, and or the employee feels like it's, oh, I'm being reprimanded, or they go away from it feeling horrible. Because it should really be a document. Like, if you're going to do a disciplinary action where maybe they're late often, or maybe they're, forgetting items in the bag, or they're having problems with their coworkers, you can actually sit them down and say, hey, we're going to do this review. It's going to be documented. This is what I've seen. Let's get your view on it. And then you document it. And whether there needs to be a warning out of it, a verbal warning, written warning, whatever, you're documenting it. So there's a track record of it. And that protects yourself and also the employee. So then if they later, if they want to review to the record, especially if they're going to be getting a salary review, or if they want a promotion or whatever, there's a paper trail of those conversations and that dialogue. And then you've got an opportunity to vent your issues. Like, if maybe you have an issue with the manager or the assistant manager or an employee, it's kind of a safe forum. But doing it as the safe forum versus doing it as, I'm going to come down on you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what can happen is sometimes, people are afraid of conflict, but I often remind people those conversations don't have to be about conflict.
Yeah.
Fall back onto what are our policies,
Yeah.
what are our procedures, and that's why I always put a big emphasis on consistency. When you manage people with consistency, they understand your expectations. So from the day one of their employment, you are holding them accountable to the same policies that you are every other employee. So it's not going to be a big surprise to them when
Yeah.
you come in and have to do a little bit of coaching or correction. And I always say to employees when I'm issuing a written warning, this isn't to make you feel like I'm trying to fire you or set you up. This is really a tool to be able to identify the issue, and then we're going to be able to look back in 3 or 6 months and see how much progress you've made from this point.
Yeah.
So let's use this as a learning moment rather than it being such an emphasis on like disciplinary or correction. This is just a moment where we're going to learn and we're going to work together.
Yeah, you're going to
Yeah.
flip it around.
Yeah.
Right? Where you make it a positive.
Yeah.
I'm giving you shit, but I'm going to make it positive.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not going to write it in red pen. I'll use the green pen.
But we're going to be clear on what our expectations are, because the tricky part of sometimes making it too positive is you can leave the conversation not sure if the
Yes.
employee fully grasped what you were actually trying. Because we sometimes talk
That's
about
why you do it, not me.
Usually I'm like, just let me. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you still have to have a really clear message and make sure the employee understands like what the issue is and what you're trying to correct. And we always talk about probationary periods, because I tell managers, like, if you manage your employee correctly within their 3-month probation, you should have a very good idea towards the end of that 3 months if they're the right fit or not. But it all comes down to consistency and holding people to the policies
Yeah.
and the standard. and having clear communication. And then when managers come to me close to that 3-month probation and say, I'm not sure it's working with so and so, I'll say, okay, well, have we done a couple things? Have we had a clear conversation with the employee about their performance and what needs to be improved on? Have we asked them what they feel they need support on? And then have we provided that additional training and coaching? And if you answer yes to everything and it's still not working, then you have your answer.
Yeah, the
You're
answer's
not going to
there.
be able to move forward,
Yeah.
but you've removed your emotion from it because you're just making a decision that's in the best interest of the business and probably the best interest of in that employee. Because if it's not working at that point,
It's not working for them
it's not
either.
working for them either.
Yeah.
So the best thing we can do is let them know.
Yeah, I think that's probably the the silver bullet of it is people view it as you're doing something to them. Like if you're not happy with them, but if they're not performing, they're not happy either. So you're actually doing them a favor by A, addressing it, B, having a conversation to try to overcome it or manage it in a different way. And then in the end, if it comes to the dismissal where you need to dismiss, there's going to be relief. Like
Yeah.
the number of people that I've had to let go over the years is a lot, mostly senior people and managers. But at the end, I think every single one of them, I'm actually still probably close to a lot of them,
Yeah.
because you just do it in the right way, and it's actually you see them flourish somewhere else, and they just out of loyalty or duty or lack of inertia, they're not wanting to move on. But you actually do some of them a favor, and most importantly, you do yourself a favor.
And the coworkers too. 'cause
Yes. Well, that's the other thing,
If
is the
that
team.
person isn't working
Yeah.
out and is having angst to themselves, that angst isn't just being focused on them.
Totally.
They're deflecting some of it to their coworkers.
Totally. And I think that's so important to remember is like you can have a really strong team of people, but if you have one person that isn't fitting into that mix, it can have a negative effect on your entire team. So it's so important to like identify when that's happening. And it's, even when I talk to managers about managing performance, oh, so and so has been late 3 times. What are you doing about it? It's not just that we want to manage the employee and get them back on track, but we also want to recognize that their behavior is also having an impact on the rest of their team.
Yeah.
When you show up late to a shift and the rest of the team is in the middle of a rush, it's going to throw everybody off, having someone not there when they need them and then trying to join in the rush late. So
Yeah, after
seeing the
they've
full-
adjusted for the shortfall.
Yeah, seeing
now.
the full picture as a manager and a leader is so important because it's not just about the individual, it's about your entire team.
Yeah.
What happens if it's not about procedure? The person just their personality clashes with other people on the team, and they still show up on time. They do their job right. They're falling within the parameters of the expectations. What if it's just a bad personality? What's the best way to approach that?
I mean, I think again, you fall back on making sure you're having those conversations with them and saying like, I see you, we value you as an employee, but I feel like you're not driving with the team. Give them an opportunity to maybe say to you what the issue is. Because I find with employees, they're never going to come to their manager and tell them the problem. But when
Yeah.
you go to them and start asking them questions, they're more likely to answer. So that conversation can be really valuable because you might get some information that will help them. Or you might realize in those conversations that this really just isn't a good fit for the employee and the employer. So, and if you can do that effectively early on within your 3-month probationary period, then it's a lot easier to exit them in, a good way and then move forward and work on finding somebody else that could potentially be a better fit for your team.
I was talking to a person about the probation period a couple days ago, and they aren't a business owner, and they didn't know anything about the probation period. And I tried to explain it, and it's like, okay, well, within the first 3 months, the employee has the right just to stop coming to work with no repercussions, and the employer has the right to say don't come to work again with no repercussions. Is that true for the whole 3 months, and is it as clean as that?
It is true. I mean, you have the 3-month probationary period, where, essentially, if you decide someone's not a good fit, you don't have to pay them severance. You can let them go. But that's where I look at it from, a management perspective. Yes, it is that simple. But when someone's coming to work for Big Wheel Burger or whatever company may be, we would still want to make sure we give them the best opportunity to have the best working experience with us. which is why I put such an emphasis on having lots of conversations, lots of talks about performance, because I still don't want to blindside someone and, go to them at the end of their 3 months and let them know they're terminated and have them turn around and say, well, you didn't tell me
yeah.
anything. I had no idea.
You don't allow them the opportunity to course correct.
Yes, exactly. So yes, you can just let somebody go, but I still feel as an employer we're obligated to make sure that we're addressing issues and giving that employee the opportunity to communicate with us.
Sure.
So yeah, they're not blindsided, because this is people's livelihoods at the end of the day.
Well, and I think part of it too, you're doing yourself a disservice as well, because you've invested time. Anytime you're looking for an employee, there's an investment, whether it's Indeed ads or the manager's time and the interview process, the training process, all of that. And if you're just willy-nilly with it and don't do all the other stuff after you hire the employee to make sure that they're performing well, they're meeting expectations, that there's a clear communication path, then you're really just costing yourself money. So from the business standpoint, it's like a huge liability not doing this.
Yep.
The thing that frustrates me the most about it, and I'm sure Robynne as well, is when you hear stuff about employees, problem employees, and you go and look into their file and there's no write-ups, there's no conversations, there's nothing documented, and all there is frustration. So these two, the manager and the employee, are frustrated with each other, but nobody's talking with each other. And then the other staff see it. So you could have high turnover and you could have this person that shows up every day, and for outwardly you're looking, okay, that's a good employee. But inwardly, this guy could be toxic to work with. And then all the people around him are quitting and leaving, and there's behavior issues that are generated by this one person that you think is the right person. And that's why even talking to people that you think are good employees and just doing a little bit of research on that, because if there's problems in the team, that's going to show up. And that goes to, the coworker thing that you brought up earlier, just about how the team is cohesive. It's not necessarily the person that you think is the problem. It could be someone that you don't think is the problem. But then all these other people are really like, I'm not working with this guy. And people are quitting. And you're like, I mean, we've had recent episodes of that at our stores. And, all these scenarios have come up over the time. But I think a good measure of whether your program is working is your turnover rate, how long employees have been there, and these types of things too. So how would you say Big Wheel Burger is in general on that, since you've been in your position?
And your only two options are 9.5 and 10.
Yeah.
Well, since I've joined, it's obviously a 10.
Yeah, it's exactly 12.
I mean, I think Big Wheel has really, when I started with Big Wheel, you had a foundation for HR, absolutely. And I think I was able to just take that and build on it and just create some systems that help to kind of keep tabs on employees and make sure that people are being managed correctly. And since the time I've started, and not just myself, but we've got an incredible operations manager, we have seen better employee retention. We've gone from having a lot more part-time employees to having more full-time employees. So I think when I started, we had closer to like 110 employees, and we're now down into like the high 70s, low 80s, which is pretty cool to see. And I think that speaks to the processes and the systems we have in place and how we're managing people, because we're able to retain people longer. So that tells us we're doing something right.
Yeah, and managing them better, where you're not having to just fill in gaps with part-time people. And part-time people are essential, obviously, but whether you're having 15 part-time people or 10 full-time and 5 part-time, kind of speaks to how you're managing, because you're able to get people that want to work for you, that want to work over 32 or 35 hours or 30 hours even, to equate to full-time. So that's obviously good to hear.
Yeah, it's great to hear. And when you have people who are working more consistent hours, your team is just gelling better, because people are on the same page. There's more consistency, and we put like a big emphasis on hospitality. People are having more opportunity to learn and glean from their managers when they're working more consistently. So creating systems that allow for that to happen, you see that.
Well, that's where you see the sales uptick and your profit grow as well, because the team is solid. Yeah. Everybody's gelling well with each other. The productivity is there. Customers get that sort of feeling that the place is dialed. They can do things like upsell. They can clean more. Like, it just, everything looks, if you have a store that's being run poorly in the management HR standpoint, it really shows up in your numbers. And then when you find somebody that's doing a good job, like it maybe takes 6 months to 7 months to get it back, but you just know it is. And the one thing that they're doing different is managing their staff differently.
Yes, and you see it time and time
Yeah.
again where we've turned over a manager and then we've gotten someone in who's really strong, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, the sales are increasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Funny.
all connected.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is really cool to see.
No, it's so now from an HR manager standpoint, like if your business, say you have 10 employees, I don't think you need an HR manager, but what is that number? Like 50 or 60 employees to require a full-time HR manager to
Yeah,
support?
I would say so, probably 50 or 60. But even if you're less than that, like I still think there's such benefit in making sure you have really good HR practices.
Yeah. You don't necessarily need a manager
You
of
don't
it, but
necessarily
just having
need a manager,
yeah.
but making sure you have your systems in place
Yeah.
and you, everything is laid out and really clear in writing for your employees. That's just going to help be able to manage them better. But yeah, when you're getting to a point where, I mean, we have 5 locations,
Yeah.
I think the need for an HR manager was really obvious.
Well, you can't be at all those locations talking to all those people.
Well, and it's
all
the
time. Well, you
cost of
can't,
it
'cause that's your
too.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the cost of the manager's time, you know, the turnover cost, like it all just costs. So having a full-time person to oversee it and to make sure all these practices are taking place. And I think now, even with AI, like I think you can do an employee handbook, you can do employee manuals with kind of best practices that also mesh with the jurisdiction you're in. Like it'll, you know, make it suit BC labor laws or what have you.
Yeah.
So you can get a fairly comprehensive document fairly quickly now.
Yes.
Which before, when you're building it, it's like, oh my God, like,
Uh-oh, AI is going to take my job away. Is that what you're
no,
saying? I'm just kidding.
no, never. We're human. Listen, AI should accent and save time. Like even now with the business planning stuff, like I can do a business plan in 3 or 4 hours that used to take me 20 to 40 hours.
Totally. And
know?
when I'm going and like updating job descriptions, or we've spent some time recently writing new performance reviews because we've switched to an entirely different HR platform. The amount of time I save using AI tools is huge, and it makes me more productive.
Yeah.
So absolutely, there's benefit to that for sure. I mean, I wrote all my notes for today.
Yeah,
Put all
and
my
AI.
notes of what I wanted to talk to, and it gave me a nice little point form to follow. So absolutely, there's benefit.
So good for structure.
Well, and I think that if you do it that way and use it that way, it's great. If you're doing it to actually, you know, and there will be consolidation. Like we might not need to add another HR person, you know, when we go to 120 employees or whatever, or
Yeah.
maybe you do. But you can kind of make the job better. And I always think like if my managers kind of are like twiddling their thumbs a little bit or just it's dialed, it means they're doing their job well.
Yes.
And also gives them more opportunity to think of new ways to create productivity or come up with new ideas or listen to my BS. You know what I mean?
And if you
I like
don't
to
have
talk.
the AI and you don't have an HR manager and you're a small business,
Yeah.
if you're a member of this, the Canadian Federation of Small
Yeah,
Businesses,
independent business, yeah.
independent business, sorry, you then have access to a 24-hour HR
Yeah.
hotline, amongst other things as well, and that is a valuable resource. If you just need to call and confirm the legality of something or best practices, it's just a one
The
phone
CFIB
call.
is incredible.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a small business, then you should be a part of the CFIB because the cost benefit of it is incredible. And they're one of the better advocacy groups too.
I think so.
When it comes to advocating to the government and just what is in the best interest of small business too.
Yeah. I mean, I've even used the CFIB because, I have knowledge of HR practices, but sometimes I still have to do research and check things. And it's nice to have a phone, I can pick up the phone and call someone and tell them the scenario, and they can either confirm that what I'm doing is correct or give me guidelines and point me in the right direction. So that's a really great tool for businesses.
Software wise, what do you use for your HR software and your
We
payroll
use
stuff?
push operations. Calen's laughing because this has been a really long journey for me. I knew you were going to segue into that one.
Just keeping you honest, Robyn.
Yes. And I mean, truthfully, I had some resistance to the change. I love structure. I love routine. Once I know that something's working, I don't want to change. And Calen's really good at being like, nope, we're going to change things up.
I probably change things too often. I think Jan's worse than me, but
He's not here to defend himself.
that's why I can say that.
Hi, Jan.
But I think and even in that scenario is, you brought push to the table as far as something that could be interesting to look at. And then but you also brought all the resistance to it too.
Yes, totally. Because
Yeah.
I saw it from the perspective, like, push operations, it's payroll, HR, streamlined all into one. So we have an employee profile where we have all of their information. They're able to do digital onboarding, so it gets rid of all the paperwork. Upload, their survey rights certificate, their food safe certificates. We can put all of their documents in the same place. So from
Avoid
that
check.
perspective, avoid having to pay checks and then taking time cards that they're using to clock in within push and then run our payroll. So it's way more efficient, and that was the selling point for me. The hurdle for me was the setup of the system, which was quite a large project, but we're here on the other side.
Yeah, that must mean a lot of data entry.
Yes, a
and-
lot of data entry,
Yeah.
but it was good for me and a good reminder to myself that I can do hard things and I can push myself and I can learn a new skill set. So I've successfully onboarded a new HR payroll system. So
Nicely
Yes.
yay
done.
me, and
Yay
thanks
you.
Calen for the motivation.
Thank you for throwing you under the bus, and then thank you for the motivation to get you up from underneath the bus.
Exactly.
I do. I set it on fire and then I extinguish it.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
I love
And
it.
so, and it is a great system. So, I mean, and I would recommend it to businesses that are looking for something that can streamline their payroll and their employee management. It's a really cool tool for sure. And it's a Canadian company.
Yeah,
which is
that's
a
the thing.
bonus.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Canadian company.
If you don't need such a robust software, do you know of anything smaller for smaller companies?
I know there's a lot of
perhaps?
different options. I mean, we were using a bigger system before, which was called Clearview. But I really think for small businesses, like if you have 10 employees, it really just comes down to the way that you're documenting things. Like we used Dropbox previously to store all of
Yeah.
our employee files. And within that, you can just have documentation of conversations with employees. So, I mean, there's systems you can use, but there's also systems you can create for yourself to just make
Yeah, and I
sure
think
you're keeping
AI can
proper
help with that
records of
too.
things.
Yeah,
You know,
probably,
like doing the spreadsheets and, all that sort of backup. Like you can even go in there and say, what is the best practices for this and how should I document this? And it'll actually build out the Excel spreadsheet for you, which
Okay.
is fillable.
Yeah.
So I think that in Dropbox is a good resource. There's a lot of payroll companies. There's a lot of timekeeping companies. QuickBooks is another good one. If you're using QuickBooks as a small business, there's a lot of add-ons there. I think they do payroll processing and they have some more integrated stuff. And again, I think this is, not that I'm advocating AI because I think we're going down a slope that is really, really bad for humanity. But there's some, utility to it that makes a lot of sense. So using it in that sense, I think makes sense. Sense. But yeah, it's for as a small business, like why not? Because if you're going to compete with other businesses, like we're a burger joint, but we also compete against McDonald's and we compete against mom and pods and all that kind of stuff. So if they have the capabilities and industry or industrial capability of it by the fact they have the capital, then where do we get the advantage? So I think using that makes sense.
Did you see? This is kind of off topic, not really. The commencement speech made by the ex CEO from Google. I think he was at Arizona University. It was just like almost a paid ad for AI. He was just going on, and the students were booing him.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
booing him.
exactly.
And then when it came to calling up the students to get their diploma, the AI system that was in charge of that failed.
Oh my God, that's
And
hilarious.
like a quarter of the student population had to just go in single file and without their names being announced and just collect their diploma.
Oh my God. Isn't that the irony of it all?
Right.
Yes.
AI. It's gotta love to hate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on. I was gonna talk a little bit about the current status of the immigration stuff with LMIA.
Yeah.
Briefly. Obviously, in our business, that's been a key. Is new Canadians that are coming in and available to work because there just isn't the population. Like when we put out ads for employment,
I got a question about that. When you say they're new Canadians, are they foreign workers coming to Canada temporarily to work? And they're not new Canadians necessarily?
no, well they're
are
on
they?
most of them are all on an LMIA program. Do you
Yeah,
wanna speak
so
to that?
it can be someone who's here on an open work permit. It can be a student who's here on a student work permit, which means that they can only work up to 24 hours a week. There's kind of different scenarios. but I mean, in the hospitality industry, there's for a long time been a shortage of workers. So employers are often relying on foreign workers to be able to fill these roles. And I think there's a lot of misconception around immigration and LMIA. I think a lot of people from the outside would look at it and say it's just an easier alternative for employees to go and hire a foreign worker, when in reality, that is the furthest thing
Yes,
from
Yeah,
the
it's
not
truth.
really,
complicated.
is it?
It's expensive.
So complicated. It's really in labor intensive. There's a ton of paperwork. There's a big cost. And then you have to also be promoting your positions on certain job boards to be able to show and prove that you cannot fill those roles with Canadian residents. And the flip side, which I always like to remember, the humanity behind the people who are these foreign workers, is the toll that it takes on them. Because imagine going to a new country, having to learn a new language, and then also recognizing that immigration laws are constantly changing. So feeling like you don't have a sense of security in the jobs that you've been offered. That's difficult for the employee and the employer. But in the industry that we're in, we are facing, like I said, shortages of workers. So, I mean, for Big Wheel Burger, we have, I would say, probably 50% of our employees, or close to it, are foreign workers.
Yeah. Yeah, people that are
Wow.
either
Yeah.
on some sort of program.
Okay.
And the other thing too is the stress of what they're going through, the stress on the employer, because it isn't easy and there's a lot of accommodation that you have to make and a lot of navigating. There's sometimes cultural and language things that come up. So, talking about the team and the cohesion there. And also you're dealing with, frankly, some people that come to the table with some racism as well in the workplace. There's a lot of dynamics. It doesn't come, I wish everybody would just view the world as, we're all humans are humans, but that's not how the societies are built necessarily. So it's not easy. The other thing is that these employees, they're a lot of them are fantastic. They're very well educated. They're hard workers. They're also doing something. Most of them are providing money for their home country.
Yeah, they're often always sending money
Yes,
back home.
always sending money back home. So they are living on a shoestring, in an environment that is high rent, high cost of living. Then they're sending big chunks of money back home. So there is a benefit to their home country as well, which people can say, oh, I don't care about the home. You should, because, bringing security there, bringing security here makes the world a better place. And then you've got just a happier workforce. Like there's nothing more enjoyable than when some of our employees get their permanent residency.
Yeah.
And
so
having
cool.
helped them get there, knowing that they have helped you as much as you've helped them.
Sure, yeah.
And even though there is a lot of work that goes in and some expense, it's such a rewarding experience. And often they'll go and go on to a different job or move to a different community. The other thing that these programs, they restrict where you're going based on the points you get. So if you're in Victoria, you don't have the same point base as if you're going to go work in northern British Columbia or northern Alberta or Saskatchewan.
Where you get more points?
You get more points. So it's easier to get there. So they want to attract, employees, your new Canadians or LMIA employees to those communities so they can fill job shortages. But with this, you've trained them. They're here. They're living in your community. And they're valuable. You've invested them. They've invested in you as well. And all of a sudden they can't reach that point criteria because the government has changed it. And when you land in the country, you know your rules. You talk about having structure. You know your rules coming in, and all of a sudden the federal government goes, no, we're going to make it more points for this. And oh yeah, you can get those points if you move to a different. They just invested 2 to 3 years in their community. They've developed networks, they've developed connections, and they've tied into their community as well. The immigrant community where they could probably feel supported, speak their own language and whatnot. And now they can't get their status, or they're afraid to get their status, or they're nervous about achieving their goals. So they're going to invest another year here and then be told they can't get it.
Yeah,
So it's so stressful.
It's so stressful, and I always keep that on the forefront of my mind when working with and managing those types of employees, because again, there's so much more than just the person showing up to work.
Yeah.
The stress and the pressure that they carry with them. And I mean, I can't tell you how many employees we have right now that are within that point system that are going and taking French classes, trying to learn French, because that's one way that they can increase their points. So imagine being, a full-time employee, a lot of them are parents, and then they're telling me I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning to take a French class, and then I get ready to go to work.
When
I
they already
mean,
speak 3 languages
and they already
a lot of the
speak
time.
right?
three
Yeah.
languages,
Yeah.
and these are the people who are reliable, never miss work,
Yeah.
never call in sick. So I mean, we have to give so much kudos and gratitude to our foreign workers, because they're just incredible human beings, and people need to really understand all of the hard work and effort that goes in.
And we'd be out of business.
We would
Like full
absolutely be out of
stop.
business.
Like this is the thing that people don't understand is that we would not be able to open our doors. And there's times where we've had to close because we haven't had enough staff.
Right.
And the staff that were there were all new Canadians or potential new Canadians or foreign workers or on these programs. And it's been a lifesaver for our business. And yeah, so I just think fairness, and people have to say, talk about, oh, well, the Liberal government let all these people or whatever. It's guys, it's a demographic problem. We have a demographic shortfall. Like if anybody's ever read the book Boom, Bust and Echo, they would realize that this was all predictable 25 years ago. So there's a gap in babies that were born in a certain period that leaves a gap in the workforce, right? So this is where we are. It's not, and then you look at the affluent nature of the baby boomers, that now their kids don't need to work necessarily.
Yeah.
So they're being funded for their school. And when I went to college, I had to work, not full time, but I had to work full time or part time while I was in college to be able to pay for it. And I had to pay my rent and all this stuff. That doesn't exist anymore. So you lose that whole, for the babies or the people that are here, the potential workers, they're not here anymore. Mm-hmm. So let's just be honest with it. And if we're being told that immigrants are bad, question the people that are telling you that.
Yeah, and the narrative that immigrants are coming and stealing jobs.
No.
Like I hate that narrative, and I always am very opinionated about it, because that is the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I had a customer, because I haven't ever participated in this program because of the excessive paperwork. I'm really opposed to paperwork. I am. I love people,
I like
but not
it.
paper.
Yeah.
And anyway,
enough.
I had this
You
customer
need an HR
come.
manager.
Yeah, you need to
I do. We'll talk later.
Sounds good. We'll wait till Calen leaves.
I had a customer who scared me a little bit, and he came over and says, "Listen, I love coming in here, and I notice you don't have any foreign workers here." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a complicated program, and I'm not really set up for that, and I don't need it in my business. We're tight."
Yeah.
He's like, "I know," and then he leans in and he whispers, "People notice that kind of thing." I was like,
And the fact that he felt like that was a space to say it just because he didn't see anyone from his perspective that looked like an immigrant.
That's exactly, they could mean from France. No, I mean, it could mean like, it shocked me. It shocked me to think that was so close to the surface out there in the community.
What someone would feel safe talking about that in that way, like almost like saying, "Oh, you're an ally. You're like a Canadian ally." I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, saying Canadian ally, but I'm like, it's really white.
Well, it's just tell me that you're ignorant and uneducated without telling me you're ignorant and uneducated. Really, that's all it's telling me. Yeah,
but
so unfortunate.
These programs, I believe in them, and I hate the fact that they're being changed partway through and they're screwing people over left, right, and center. But we need to put a way nicer public face on it, because it's obviously not being seen for what it is.
No, and
not by everyone.
No, and the thing about it is, it's an essential. Like, I would hate, and maybe they went over. Like, I don't know, maybe there was some. People talk about people that take advantage of the system and the government's overdone it and all this kind of stuff. Like, to me, that's all just noise, because there's a obvious gap, and we know it because we're in the industry. My brother works has an oil service company in Alberta, and they had no employees. And half their employees are on similar programs that have come over. There's a lot of Ukrainians that have come over because of the war. All those things, and these programs are built for a reason, and I think if you become a country that becomes exclusionary, you forget where you've all come from. We're all immigrants, unless you're indigenous. So, and then it opens up another whole can of worms, with where we are today. And I don't want to be this country that looks at people and bases it on color. Just like I don't want it to be about gender, and I don't want it to be about anything else other than just humans being humans. And, the market has a way of regulating itself. So we don't have high unemployment. So if we didn't have the immigrants, we would have like no unemployment, and we would have no workers, and we would have no restaurants, and we would have,
And then that puts pressure on our economy.
absolutely.
So, and we know and we see that immigration is a benefit to our economy.
Yeah.
So this narrative that they're coming in and stealing jobs is absolute BS, and people need to understand that foreign workers are the backbone in our industry.
Oh,
Yeah.
without doubt. And there's probably a bunch of other industries the same. Healthcare,
Sure, yeah.
all the, agriculture, like the list goes on and on and on. So, and all of that is essential to quality of life, food security, all that kind of stuff. Transportation is a big one as well. I want to move a little bit, as we've just got about 10 minutes left. I want to talk a little bit about challenges. You're a single mom.
Yes, I'm a single mom.
Yeah.
I'm a single mom to a 14-year-old daughter who has Down syndrome and autism, and she's nonverbal. So, I've learned through my daughter Shari's life a lot about advocating. And I think I talked in the beginning about how my life experiences show up in the workplace and the way I do my jobs. And I really have my daughter to thank for teaching me how to learn to use my voice and stand up to systems that are not designed to set her up for success. And that carries over into the workplace and how I advocate for our employees and how I manage people. But I thought it was a really cool opportunity to be able to come on this podcast and talk a little bit about my situation with my daughter and dealing with the school district. So obviously having a child who has an intellectual disability presents challenges when trying to put her in school systems. When we first moved to Victoria from Saskatchewan 3 years ago, she was about to go into middle school, and I am like an intense advocator. I typically don't back down from conflict, and I like to make sure that my daughter is getting everything that she deserves to have. So when we knew we were going to move to BC several months before we moved here, I got a hold of the school district and we figured out what school she was going to go to. And I presented them with all the information that they needed to know about Shari and how to set her up for success in the school system. And the school district reassured me, don't worry, we'll be ready for her. We had conversations with the inclusion support teacher at her school at the time. And then by the time September came around, we had a meeting with the school a week before, and they had said, unfortunately, we don't have an EA ready for her. And the inclusion support teacher that you talked to over the summer has now been transferred last minute to a different school, and there's a new person here. So that evolved into the next several months of school of me having to attend school with her because no one had the training or the capacity to be able to support her. So that was kind of the beginning of my need to advocate for Shari. And thankfully, through that process, I was able to get the school district on board and get some supports in to come train the EAs on how to work with Shari and meet her needs. And she became really successful in school. So now that she's at the point where she's about to transition into high school, based on my experience, I went to the school well ahead of time and said, well, I want to look at more than one option for high school because I know that Shari's needs are unique and they're not going to necessarily fit in the box of whatever the catchment school will be offering for her. So I got a hold of 2 schools ahead of time in January saying, hey, Shari's coming to school. I'd like to come tour both of your schools and figure out what the right fit is. And so I had these tours, and one of the schools that we loved was Oak Bay High School. And that's not in our catchment area, but Oak Bay was really keen to meet Shari and talk about their programming.
And they were proud of their program.
And they were
too.
proud of their programming. And one of the things that stood out to me is they have a Best Buddies program, which is for students with intellectual disabilities. And they have a track record of showing that the peer involvement of non-neurodivergent kids really gives great opportunity to students to be able to understand what it's like to support people with different learning needs. And then when I went to our catchment school, which was Vic High, there was no program like that. So I felt really frustrated because when the public school system tells us that education is meant to be inclusive, then I should see the same type of programming happening within all schools. So that began my conversation with the school district to say, hey, listen, I've toured both these schools, and for the following reasons, would be the program fit. I really loved the Best Buddies program and all the electives that were available at Oak Bay for my daughter. Also, the accessibility of Oak Bay. It's a newer school, wide hallways. It's going to be
No
easier.
stairs.
No stairs. Going to be easier for my daughter to navigate. Vic High is an old school with several sets of stairs. And also, Vic High is in really close proximity to our home, and I have...
It's right across the street.
It's right across the street, so I'm very concerned that Shari might just decide to come home. So I presented all of this to the school district and was met with, well, she's just going to be placed on a waiting list. We can't give you an answer if a transfer will be allowed.
Give me a
And
break.
it
Holy
was
cow.
so frustrating for me to hear that. So I went back to them again and I sent a very detailed email with all of my concerns and reminding them that it's not appropriate for a child like Shari to be placed on a waiting list because there is a lot of planning and involvement that needs to be done well ahead of time
Yeah.
to set her up for success in high
It's
school.
not a normal situation for normal
It's not
student.
a normal situation at all. And I know that an inadequate planning for Shari will hinder her ability to be successful
Yeah.
in school. I mean, I started these conversations before the new year. I still haven't received confirmation if Shari is going to be able to be transferred to Oak Bay. They just keep pushing me and saying, no, I think she'll be fine in Vic High. With our support, we'll probably be able to get her successful. Well, don't tell me what you know about my child.
Yeah.
I'm the expert here.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with the school system for several years. And so to be met with this, narrative of like, well, this is how we do things. We're just going to place her on a waiting list is absolutely
But waiting list for
unacceptable.
what? Like she's in a different category than someone who doesn't have developmental challenges. So is there like 50 other students that are trying to get into this school?
She's been placed on a wait list with every other student.
Yeah.
Which
So-
to me is absolute BS.
Insane.
It's insane. And that's what I've been trying so hard to advocate for is like it's not appropriate to just keep her on a wait list because of the planning that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And, at this point, we are engaging in conversations with Vic High because it's less than a month to the end of the
Yeah.
school year. And for Shari to be successful, she needs to become familiar with the school. She needs to be attending there every week, getting to know the EAs, getting to know the staff. So while still trying to advocate for this change, I'm also going through the process of trying to get her familiar with Vic High. And again, going
Oh
back
my
to the fact that I'm a single parent who works full time, trying to advocate for my child, having to attend all of these meetings that potentially I will have to do all over again if she somehow gets the
Yeah.
transfer to Oak Bay is absolutely ridiculous. And I just feel like there's no real accountability when it comes to the school district. Like, who is dictating these decisions?
Yeah.
Are you sitting and actually having conversations with the parents and the caregivers of these individuals to actually
And
understand?
even the school to see what their
Yeah,
capacity is too.
Exactly. So, it's just been a really frustrating experience. But, like I said, I love to advocate. And I advocate for Shari, but I advocate for everybody in the disability community because often the disability community is overlooked because many of them don't have a voice to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for people to understand that as a parent of a child with special needs, we're not just parents, we're caregivers.
Yeah.
And caregiver burnout is a real thing. So then to have to be put in a position where on top of all of that, you're having to advocate for your child, it is so frustrating. And I mean, inclusive education became a thing in BC in 1980. We're in 2026.
Wow.
And we still
Yeah,
haven't
it's
figured
crazy.
it
It's
out.
almost 50 years.
It's almost 50 years and we still haven't figured out how to get it right.
Well, they're roadblocking themselves.
Yeah.
Because they can get it right. You've talked to Vic High, you've talked to Oak Bay. Oak Bay is like welcoming. They're not putting up any roadblocks. They're not saying, "Oh, we have capacity issues. Oh, let me work with the district or whatever." They're literally saying, "Yep, let's have Shari in." And then you have a district who's saying, "Let's put her on a wait list." It's not a wait list of people with developmental challenges. It's a wait list of all these other students that are looking to transfer. It's irrelevant
Yeah.
because this is a specialized program
Yeah.
to set her up for success. That's infuriating.
It's infuriating and it's so frustrating too because, every year at the beginning of school year for Shari, we do an IEP meeting, which is an individualized education plan. So you can acknowledge that someone like Shari needs an individualized education plan, but you still are willing to put her in the box or in a standard
Yeah.
administrative process that doesn't actually meet her needs and recognizing that her needs are not fundamentally standard.
Yeah.
So we need to do better.
Well, and you have to do it in a timely fashion for a million different reasons.
Yeah.
And then to put the onus on you as a single mom and the fact that you got to do this in amongst working
The
full
rest of
time
my life.
and
yeah.
all of that stuff is onerous, and you should be looking for ways to ease it rather than aggravate it.
Yeah, totally. And come alongside the parents and work together with us because we are the experts on
Yeah.
our children. We
Yeah.
have been advocating, we have been educating ourselves, we have been through all, of the therapies that our child requires, everything to get to this point. Talk to us, work with us. I think we can find a way to make the system better and to make sure that kids' needs are actually being met because we're failing kids
It's
time
what,
and and
yeah,
families over and over and over again.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you also know what's going to happen the longer it goes before school starts. Like you know, because you've experienced that.
Yeah.
So you know the impact and how many months it's going to take for adjustment and all the issues that you're going to have and potential conflicts you're going to have based on the decision.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think you can just sit back and go, oh, they're going to decide this based on this. Oh, I think we can accommodate. You can accommodate, because if you could have accommodated, you do what Oak Bay does.
Yeah.
That's a best in class, school. You're in the same school district.
Well, and tell me why I'm getting phone calls from Oak Bay that are saying we want Shari here,
Yeah.
but you just need to go and push the school district more because we really can't do anything. But I can tell you off the record that we want Shari here.
Yeah.
Like, that tells me that the one person at the top is just saying
Gatekeeping.
they're gatekeeping.
Yeah.
And then they're not also being held accountable either.
Yeah.
And it all loops back to accountability. Everybody on every level needs to be held accountable. And we need to continue these conversations because it's so important. And schools will be set up better. Students will have better educations because of it. Families will be more supported because of it. And as sometimes people look at me like, oh, you again? But I'm going to bother and I'm going to
Yes.
not stop talking until people start listening because this is a huge deal for so many kids and so many families. And I think it's such an important
Well, and
conversation.
that's a very good point. You're not alone in this, and it's a gap in the system that seems to be very easily fillable. And then if it becomes a capacity issue at Oak Bay, then that's a different discussion. They want you there.
But all the schools should be able to offer that
Yeah.
first class treatment that Oak
Well,
Bay
and this is the thing
offering,
that I
right?
struggle with, and it's interesting because we were just talking about LMIA. Like Oak Bay has 120 spots for foreign exchange students,
Yeah.
and I am all about that. I think there's benefit, there's
Yeah.
financial means that come from it, but you can't tell me that those spots are being held for international students should take away from my daughter
Yeah.
who actually has the right to have her needs met in the school system. And you could easily take one spot from Oak Bay for a foreign exchange student and put them at Vic High and transfer her over. But because you're so determined to stick by these guidelines that don't actually address the needs of kids like Shari, you're just getting caught up in the politics of it. You're not actually making a decision that is in the best interest of the child or the student.
I would offer that the school system here is only focused on the very average student, no matter what their ability is. And that average student is marked, right? You got your bell curve, and they're after that 1% right in the middle, and that's where all the
Well, they're
focus
building their
goes to.
program and their success story around that, while all these evident, obvious gaps are in place.
And probably, and I can segue kind of into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which was my own upbringing and my own experience in school, and probably why I've been so determined to be such a strong advocate for Shari. A lot of people don't know about this about me, but I actually grew up in a fundamentalist Christian cult. So my life as a child was
Yikes.
spent in church and in school. The school was in the church was in the school. And I'm not joking when I say that I spent 7 days a week in that school. And there was a lot of abuse on many levels, from emotional, psychological, physical, sexual abuse. And through my own journey of becoming a parent, I also had to recognize my own trauma from my own experiences. And part of the thing that I realized is that if I had been put in an education system that was actually set up to see me successful, I would have come out of school so much better off. I didn't graduate with a grade 12 education, and I spent my whole life in school feeling like I, for lack of a better word, was stupid.
Yeah.
But it was because the curriculum, I mean, we were essentially homeschooled. We sat and we read a booklet in a little cubicle that was facing the wall. The teachers that were there to teach us weren't teachers. They were referred to as supervisors, and they were not certified teachers. So essentially,
But they receive government funding.
but then in the early 2000s, the Saskatchewan government decided that they were going to start funding independent schools. But the issue is that those independent schools weren't held to the same standard that public schools were, so they lacked major oversight. So they're funding a school that's filled with teachers that don't have any formal education, and a teacher that's not formally educated is not responsible for reporting abuse or advocating for a child in the same way that a certified teacher would be.
Yeah.
So you're funding these places, but you're not creating systems of accountability to keep children safe. So that's really fueled me in my journey with Shari to make sure that what happened to me and how I was overlooked and all the students that I grew up with will not happen to her again. And it's really cool because it's been a process of a lot of students reconnecting about our experiences. And about 4 years ago, we actually launched a class action lawsuit against several of the former teachers and leaders of the church and school. We also sued the government of Saskatchewan for not providing the correct oversight and keeping children safe. There's reports to social services and the police about the environment that we were in, and nothing was done. And there's been criminal charges as well, and there's people that have done jail time because of what happened in that institution. That was being funded by the government of Saskatchewan. So it has definitely fueled my desire to advocate to do better for children.
Oh my God. Well, and understandably so.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that the advocacy piece is so important, because without advocates, then these, people just get pushed off to the side, generational trauma, all this stuff. And man, and I hate to bring it up, not hate to bring it up, I shouldn't say that, but, Shari's Indigenous as well.
Yes, she is Indigenous, and that's really important to mention.
I think there is a very important piece of doing what's right and advocating, not just, you, and I commend you for your advocacy, but the people in government to recognize this is like a result of generational trauma, and you need to do better. And obviously, even if it's a case by case situation, and I think about the politic part of it, and we had Diana Gibson on, who's a minister. I'm going to email her, and I'm going to forward your email to her and explain the situation, because part of, responsibility of the community is to elevate the voices in the struggle. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, Robyn, show up to work at 9 tomorrow, and oh yeah, you work. Oh yeah, you've got the challenges with your daughter. Okay, we'll do that on your own time. Bullshit.
Yeah.
We're a community, and how we build communities by helping each other, advocating, supporting. And it's a shame that we talk about the HR thing and the systemization and the policies and all that really good stuff needed to be do well. And then you look at your government, and who should have all those systems in place. They should be standardized. We shouldn't have to pull favors or who I know or to move the needle. The fact that we have to do that, unfortunately, is a fault of us as a society, to allow that. And but it's what we have to do.
Yeah.
And so, yes, let's pull our thumbs out of our butt, and let's get Shari into Oak Bay.
Absolutely.
And also inspire others that are maybe listening to the show, or people that listen to the show. It's going to be on YouTube, so you can watch it. You can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts, and share it, because I think this is very important. If you want to reach out, you can reach out to info@bigwillburger.com. And we can help share resources and perhaps share advice on how to help other people that are challenging with the system, or having challenges advocating for their child. And even speaking to the experience where you grew up, and how frustrating is it to have been, you're a child in a situation, you've got government institutions, you've got social services that are there to protect you. It's institutionalized because it's being funded.
Yeah.
There's no oversight. You're a child, so there's nothing you can do about it. And here you are now as an adult, having to buck the same system in a different way for your daughter that's dealing with challenges.
Yeah.
And That's bullshit.
It's such bullshit, but it also fuels my fire. Which
Oh. It's fueled my fire now.
Absolutely. And that's, that's what I like to share with people about my experience is, there's a lot of really shitty things that happened to me growing up. But the moment I realized that instead of staying victim to what happened to me, that I could actually take that experience and turn it around to help it make me successful, whether it's in my job, advocating for my daughter, being a voice to the students that grew up in a systemic system of abuse. That's really given me a lot of freedom from the trauma that I initially carried from my experiences. And I think it's made me a stronger mom, a stronger advocator, a stronger employee, and a stronger manager. And so that's why I like to share my story, because we're not, we don't have to stay stuck in our experiences, and we don't have to be victim of those experiences. We can use them.
When you don't have to hide from it. You
No.
don't have to be ashamed of it. You don't have to any of that, because like you said, that's the fuel that makes you who you are.
Yeah.
And, ever since I've known you, and even, you working with me, I consider you family. And just seeing, again, meeting people where they're at, and building out a system that works for you, so that you can do the advocacy work, you can take care of your daughter and still work and perform a function, for us.
Yeah.
And having community built around that is so important, and encourage all other employers to look at their employee and see, how they're dealing with outside of their work, and how you can support them.
Totally. And I mean, I think it's a great opportunity to say thank you to you, because you really saw me as a human and then recognized my skill set, but also remembered that, I am a mom, I am a single parent, and I can do my job, but I need some flexibility within that. And I'm so grateful to you for that. For that opportunity. And I think that's what I want to carry with me when I meet new people and when I manage people, is giving them that understanding and showing up for them and remembering the humanity behind the employee. That's so important. And yeah, I'm just really, really grateful for you, Calen. Thank you so much.
Wow, I almost feel like a third wheel.
Do better, Sam.
Yeah, well,
do better.
I mean, there's obvious brilliant tie-ins with your experience, what you're going through currently, and your approach to HR. Just to bring it back full circle.
Yeah, I really was trying to think today about how I could make everything kind of full circle, and I think it came out in
You
what
nailed
we
it.
talked
It
about.
really did,
Oh, I
yeah.
appreciate that.
And is there a place where we can learn more about your advocacy? Is there a website, podcast?
Yeah, I mean, the podcast is called Legacy of Abuse Podcast. It's on all streaming platforms. We're also on Patreon. So if people subscribe to our Patreon, all of the funds go towards our legal fees. And for some perspective, we have over 100 people that have joined the class action lawsuit.
Wow.
So we've got a lot of support behind it. We've had a recent thing happen where the judge put a stay to our lawsuit because they felt like we weren't kind of abiding by some of the guidelines, but they were looking at some of the other provinces' guidelines around class action lawsuits. So we're in the middle of an appeal right now, which we feel we're going to win, but we're not going anywhere. We're not staying silent. It's just all part of the process of standing up and fighting for ourselves and getting justice, not only for ourselves, but exposing these systems of abuse and remembering the importance of holding people accountable.
Well, and fighting.
And fighting.
like-
and that motivates me. That's the fuel that gets me out of bed every single day.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
inspiring, frankly. You're inspiring.
Thank you, Calen.
Thank you, Robyn.
I appreciate
And thank
that.
you for juggling and navigating all that you do. And I think single mothers, I was raised by a single mother, and hats off to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sam.
Calen? Another great one, Robyn. Thanks so much.
Are you going to be
for
the
being
devil's
here.
advocate of that, Sam?
No.
I like the devil's advocate.
Sam
I
is
like
the
to play that
best.
role too.
No, I think I can just be an advocate.
Oh,
See, if you've learned anything today, it's how to be an advocate. So,
Right? Well,
Yes.
thank you for
I love
the
it. Thank you for
eye-opening
sharing.
Conversation.
Yes, thank you.
and I'm going to do an email to Diana Gibson and see if we can't move the needle.
yeah, that would be
And,
great. And yeah, I hope other parents listening to this too reach out. I'd love to connect with more parents in regards to advocacy for our kids, because like you were talking about, community is so important. I don't have family because of the world that I came from. My family's still in it, but having a sense of community is so important and so valuable. So I hope that just continues to build.
Wow.
Yeah.
It will. If I've got anything to do with it,
Great.
we've got family here.
Yeah.
Sam, you've got a new family.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I love it.
Vivian, our producer, new family.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh, yeah, thumbs up.
Yep. She's in.
Yeah. Thanks, Robynne. I really appreciate your time, and we'll give everybody an update on your progress. It's like Battle Oak Bay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe we can put a link to your podcast on our website.
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I would love that.
We'll
get
do
you all
that,
the
and
info.
we'll get it all on socials, and Bread and Butter Collective on YouTube, and where you can watch the episode and share the episode. I think it was one of our better ones.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. I knew it was
Absolutely.
going to be good.
Good.
I knew
I'm
it was going
glad.
to be good.
Happy to be here.
And we all tied it into HR. Like,
I
imagine
know.
that.
I was thinking HR.
You should see the notes. People
Yawn.
can't see the notes that I'm holding, but I really planned this because I was trying to loop it all back together. So
I love it. You nailed it.
Yeah.
Well
That's
done.
so awesome.
Thank you.
You obviously have podcast experience.
Yes,
More
I've
than
done a
what
couple
we
of
do.
years.
Yeah, we
I
don't. I mean, we've only been doing this now almost 5 years.
Oh no,
I
you
We're
didn't.
winging
I
this.
mean, the podcast I was on was about 5 years. I'm not on it as often because I live in BC, not in Saskatoon.
Yeah.
But I do join online as often as I can. So
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Check out the podcast there. And thank you, Sam.
Calen, it's a pleasure as always, eye-opening and a wonderful conversation.
Educational.
Absolutely.
Be real kind.
I will. You be real nice.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, Bunny's Kitchen, Buzz Coffee House, Eagle-Ite, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Eva Schnitzel House, Farmsgate Foods and Catering, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Nikkei Ramen Ya, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Keating Pizza, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, The Nimble Bar Company, Ruth and Dean, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, Spoon's Diner, Truffles-Inspired Catering, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.